Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So my energy is a little bit lower today. I did not sleep well last night, and I am on the struggle bus. But I know that I love doing these podcasts, and without fail, every time I sit down to record one of these, my energy just increases. So I said, you know what? Let's talk about something incredibly relevant today, while I also boost my mood. So I'm going to talk to you today about being honest about what it is that you need or you want. Now, to start off, we all have very different definitions of need and want. And so first off, get very clear on that. I grew up in a household where I heard regularly, that's not a need, that's a want. And so my needs were very, very, very little. My wants were exceptionally large. One of my mentors defined it as such, where she said there's actually very little that you need to survive. When you boil it all down, there are really just a couple of things that you need to survive, and that is air and water. If you have those two things, you can survive for a pretty good amount of time. Now, shelter, food, organic, right? Like that starts to mount and that becomes more of a want. Now, again, figure out how you're defining this first, okay? For me, there aren't a whole lot of things that I need, okay? However, there are a whole lot of things that I want. And not in a materialistic kind of a sense, but in a desire sense, right? Desire, I believe, is very important. It helps us to just continue to live life and to thrive. And I believe that desire is given to us from God. It's not something to be upset about, and it's not something that you need to feel bad about, right? So there are things that I want, and the other day I was sitting down to journal, I believe, and I got the nudge to write down, be honest. The phrase came up was, be honest about what it is that you need. And so, as you've heard me talk about on previous episodes, my husband, his new job, he retired from the military in April, and his new job requires a lot of travel. And we are a couple months into this new job, and I am feeling it, right? Like just the weightiness of it. I know my husband enjoys what he does, and I will support him. We will go visit him when we can. It's a different chapter that I'm not fully adapted to yet. And so I was feeling a bit off about it over the weekend and got the nudge to just be honest about what it is that you need in the relationship, right? So what is it that you need to feel supported? What is it that you want going forward? And it reminded me of a conversation that we had prior to a deployment years ago, where we actually did a love language quiz together, because one of my love languages is acts of services. That's actually my biggest love language. So I like to remind him regularly, like, when you do shit around the house for me, that makes me feel loved, right? But because he was getting ready to deploy, that wasn't something that could be done regularly. And so I had to adapt and say, okay, in place of this, here's what I need, right? And so you just have to be honest about what it is that you need to be successful in this relationship, to be successful in this area of life, right? Like whatever it is, be honest about what it is that you need, right? And this is really, really paramount. This is something that I talk about with my clients a lot. It's radical honesty that will get you to your success. You have to be radically honest with yourself, not in like a shaming kind of a way, but just in a, hey, this is actually how I want to achieve success, right? This is how I want things to happen. Same sort of thing when I was working on my Ph.D. There was no way that I was going to sit for 8 hours on a Saturday in the library and try to get that done. What I could do was an hour a day, Monday through Friday. And that's what I did. It took me a little bit longer than some of my classmates, but I got done also a lot faster than some of my other classmates. But I got honest about what it was that I wanted. And so there are days like today where I'm low energy. I didn't sleep well last night, and I'm allowed to give myself permission to do jack shit, right? Like, there's not a lot that has to be done around the house today at all. I noticed the dog hair, so I pushed the button on the Roomba, right? Like, we went and we hung out by the pool, sat there, right? Like, there was not a lot that had to be done around the house today. And I gave myself permission to just kind of chill out and relax and not have to worry about a million things to do because I wasn't feeling it energetically. And it's okay that you have days like that. It's okay that you have moments like that, right? We're allowed to have this breathing space where we just don't feel the biggest vibe, right? Where we're just kind of content, right? Like, it doesn't have to be this high vibe energy where you're like bouncing off the walls all the time. You're allowed to have some of these lower, and not lower as in like you're sad and you're depressed, but just like, I was tired and I'm okay being tired. And doesn't make me wrong, doesn't mean I'm not going to manifest the thing that I want, doesn't mean that I'm shutting down my business, right? Like, that doesn't mean any of those negative things that you can let your mind wander to. It's simply, I was tired, and it's okay. But sometimes we have to give ourselves permission to just be tired, right? Because sometimes we will compound it. We'll make it this big, angry thing, right? Where it's like you start to beat yourself up over the fact that you're simply tired and you didn't sleep well. It's all right. It'll be okay in the end, right? So again, this is that radical honesty. What is it that you need or want in order for you to be successful? And that changes for everybody. One of the things that I know when it comes to building my business, I want the time freedom. I have 4 kids in sports. So to say that I'm going to be available every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock for a call is not ideal, right? Like, that's probably not going to happen. And so when I work with my clients, it's mostly through Voxer. We do have, one-on-one Zoom calls or a phone call periodically, depending on my client and what they need. But most of my support is done through Voxer. It gives me a lot of flexibility. It gives me the ability to respond to you in a fashion and in a space that I can, and I can give you my best. And so that was part of my flexibility in creating my business, was it had to be flexible. It was something that I wanted to build around my family, not something I wanted to build my family around. And that's very different. But I got honest about it, and it was weird at first because that's not the norm. That's not what had been set up and shown to me. It was very much your work is done and then you fit your family in. And that was never how I wanted to be with my kids. It was, my kids were the priority, and then my work showed up, right? And I got to fill in the gaps and do that. Now, there are times where I will tell my children, hey, peace out, I gotta record this podcast, give me 20 minutes, right? Like, that's one thing. But a majority of my day, especially during the summertime, is spent with my family. And I love that. You can probably hear them in the background. They are not doing a great job at being quiet. But that's fine, right? So I say all of this again, thank you for listening. I have elevated my mood quite a bit, feeling a bit more energized than I was earlier today. And I just want this to be a good reminder, like, you get to define success for you. You get to create it any way that you want, and it can look any way that you want. And so when it comes to creating it, how do you want it to look? The sky isn't even the limit here, as one of my mentors says. She says, in our world, the sky isn't even the limit, right? You get to create it to be anything that you want. It gets to feel amazing all the time. So what do you want it to look like? How do you want to do it? Start with that, and then trust that it's there for you. We talk about trust a lot, as you can tell on previous episodes. So I am going to sign off here. I am sending you so much love. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye, love.